I can't do this. I swear to you, I can't breathe air!
Jisoo's fingers were locked around the door handle like it was the last solid thing in a world-turning liquid. The bridal suite hummed with voices on the other side. Laughter, footsteps, the rustle of silk. But inside the room, the air was thick enough to choke on. His reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger wearing his face, tuxedo perfect, hair sculpted, eyes wild. "You're breathing," his mother said softly behind him. "You're just afraid." "I'm not afraid," he snapped, then laughed under his breath. "I'm trapped. There's a difference." He could hear the orchestra beginning to tune downstairs. The first notes crawled up through the floorboards and wrapped around his ribs. His stomach folded in on itself. "If I walk out there," he whispered, pressing his forehead to the cool wood, "I ruin my life." His mother stepped closer. He felt her hand hover before it landed between his shoulder blades, warm and steady. "If you walk away," she murmured, "you ruin more than yours." He turned on her. "You told me she was Korean." The words hit the room like shattered glass. His mother didn't flinch. "She is." "That's not what I saw in those photos." "You saw what you wanted to see." He laughed again, louder, brittle. "Don't do that. Don't twist this into some lesson. I asked one thing, and you—" A knock cut him off, 3 sharp taps. The wedding coordinator's voice slipped through the door. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Jisoo's chest seized. He saw flashes, the aisle, the guests, the doors opening, the bride walking toward him. Toward the trap, toward the promise he'd made to a woman he'd barely spoken to and already resented. "I'll disappear," he whispered. "I can still leave through the service exit." His mother's voice dropped. "If you run, you don't just shame us. You abandon her, and she has already paid more than you know." The words landed heavy. He turned slowly. "What does that mean?" His mother's eyes glistened. For a heartbeat, she looked older, smaller. "You'll understand when you see her." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." Another knock. 2 minutes. Jisoo's heart hammered so hard he thought the door would shake with it. "I hate you for this," he said. "I know," she whispered. "Walk anyway." The music swelled, and downstairs the doors began to open. The first thing he saw was her silhouette, tall, still, framed in light. The second thing he saw was her skin. The room inhaled. She stepped forward, and the whisper rippled through the crowd like a match dragged across silk. Black hair braided into an intricate crown. Hanbok tailored in deep gold and midnight blue, dark skin luminous against the fabric, eyes locked on his. He felt the floor tilt. Please, let her be Korean, he had prayed. And she was. And she wasn't. And the contradiction shattered something inside him. She walked toward him with a calm that felt like judgment, every step measured, every breath steady. He could feel 1,000 eyes flicking between them, measuring his reaction. Smile, he told his face. It cracked into place. When she reached him, she bowed slightly. He mirrored it, hands trembling. Up close, her voice was low and steady. You look like you're about to faint. I might, he muttered. Don't, she said. I didn't come this far to watch you collapse. Her gaze didn't waver. There was no apology in it, no fear, only resolve. And something else. Sadness. The officiant began to speak, but the words blurred. Jisoo stared at her hands folded neatly in front of her. They were shaking, just barely. A secret tremor. She was terrified too. The realization struck like a confession. He leaned closer. Why are you doing this? Her lips barely moved. Because if I don't, my father dies thinking I ran from the only family that ever claimed me. The world stopped. What? Smile, she whispered. They're watching. He smiled. His lungs burned. Welcome to Afro Korean Stories TV, where love crosses oceans and hearts collide in ways no one survives unchanged. If you've ever felt torn between who you are and who you're expected to be, stay with us. Subscribe, like, comment. Not because it's a channel, but because these stories belong to anyone brave enough to feel them. The vows were a blur of tradition and obligation. Jisoo repeated words he didn't recognize in his own voice. Her hand in his felt warm, real, anchoring. Every time their fingers brushed, a jolt shot up his arm. Not attraction, not yet. Recognition. She was trapped too. When the ceremony ended, applause exploded, cameras flashed, relatives surged forward. His grandmother grabbed the bride's hands. "Our daughter," she declared in Korean, tears streaking her face. "You came home." The bride bowed deeply. "I hope I'm worthy," she said. "You are," the old woman insisted. "You already are." Jisoo watched the exchange with a hollow ache. His grandmother had never looked at him like that, not once. During the reception, he drifted like a ghost. Every time he glanced up, he found her surrounded by relatives. Laughing, speaking flawless Korean, navigating rituals with precision. She belonged here in a way he suddenly didn't. His cousin Minho cornered him near the bar. "You look like hell." "I feel worse." Minho followed his gaze. "She's incredible." "She's a stranger." "So are you," Minho said lightly. "You've been pretending for years." Jisoo bristled. "You don't understand." "No," Minho said. "I do. You wanted a wife who made life simple. Instead, you got one who makes it honest." Across the room, the bride looked up. Their eyes met. She smiled. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't pleading. It was tired. And in that exhaustion, he saw the truth. She wasn't here to win. She was here to survive. Later, when the guests thinned and the music softened, he found her alone on the balcony. The city lights spilled over her shoulders. She didn't turn when he approached. "You lied," he said quietly. "So did you," she replied. "I didn't lie. You stood at that altar pretending you didn't hate the sight of me." The words hit clean, precise. "I didn't hate you," he said. "I hated what this meant." "And what does it mean?" He swallowed. "That I don't know who I am anymore." She finally faced him. "Good," she said. "Neither do I." Silence stretched between them, alive with possibility and dread. He studied her face. "Tell me your name," he said suddenly. "Not the one in the papers, the one you use when you're alone." Her eyes softened. "Ayo," she whispered. "My father called me Ayo." The name settled into him like a promise. "I'm Jisoo," he said. "Not the version they parade around, just me." Ayo nodded. "Then maybe we start there." Inside, the party roared back to life. Outside, they stood suspended between two worlds. Strangers bound by a vow neither fully understood. And for the first time that night, Jisoo didn't feel like running. He felt like listening. And it terrified him more than escape ever had. The balcony door slid shut behind them, muting the reception into a distant heartbeat. Ayo leaned her palms against the railing and closed her eyes like she was memorizing the air. Jisoo watched the muscles in her shoulders tighten and release. She carried herself like someone who had practiced endurance for years. "I thought you'd run," she said without looking at him. "I tried," he admitted. "Upstairs, 5 minutes before the doors opened." She huffed a quiet laugh. "I stood in the hallway and prayed you would." That pulled his gaze to her face. "You wanted me to leave?" "I wanted honesty," she said. "Running would have been honest." He didn't know what to do with that. Honesty had always felt like a luxury reserved for people without expectations, stapled to their backs. He'd been raised on performance. Bow correctly, smile correctly, succeed loudly. Feelings were private things, sealed and hidden. "And if I had run?" he asked. Ayo opened her eyes. City lights glittered in them. "Then I would have walked down that aisle alone," she said. "And I would have still said the vows." His breath caught. "Why?" "Because my father is dying," she said simply. "And he needed to see me belong somewhere before he left." The words settled heavy and irreversible. He pictured a hospital room, a man clinging to time, waiting for proof his daughter wouldn't drift untethered after he was gone. "You're marrying me for a witness," Jisoo whispered. "I'm marrying you for a bridge," she corrected, "a way to cross from one life into another without drowning in between." He laughed softly, shaken. "That's poetic." "It's desperate," she said. "Don't romanticize it." He leaned beside her, elbows on the railing. The night air cooled the sweat at his neck, Below, traffic flowed like a river that didn't care about weddings or promises. The city moved forward no matter who was breaking. "I don't know how to be your bridge," he said. "You don't," she replied. "You just stand still long enough for me to walk." The simplicity of it scared him. He had always thought marriage was possession. Two lives locked together. She spoke about it like temporary shelter. "You're planning to leave," he realized. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quiet. "I'm planning to survive." Before he could press further, the balcony door slid open again. His mother appeared, eyes scanning them like a commander checking casualties. "There you are," she said. "The family wants photos." Ao straightened instantly. The exhaustion vanished behind a polite smile. Jisoo felt the transformation like a slap. She was armor and silk at the same time. "We're coming," Ao said. His mother hesitated, gaze lingering on Ao's face. Something unreadable flickered there. Guilt, maybe. Fear. Then it was gone. "Good," she said briskly. "People are talking." "They always are," Ao replied gently. His mother's lips pressed thin. She turned and left. Jisoo stared after her. "What does that mean?" Ao met his eyes. "It means your mother knows my father paid for this wedding." The floor vanished beneath him again. "He what?" "He transferred the money a week ago," she said. "Every flower, every plate, every musician. He wanted to give me a celebration that said I mattered." Jisoo's stomach twisted. "My family told me they were covering everything." "They told me the same," she said. "But I saw the receipts. I always look." Anger flared hot and immediate, not at Io, at the web tightening around them both. "They turned this into a transaction." "It was always a transaction," she said softly. "We just decided to pretend it was tradition." Inside, applause erupted for something unseen. Ao extended her arm. "Come on," she said. "Let's go smile for the camera that will document the lie." He took her arm. It felt steady, real. And as they walked back into the light, he realized the lie wasn't that they were strangers forced together. The lie was that strangers couldn't choose to become something else. Flashbulbs exploded, relatives crowded close. Ao slid into every frame like she'd rehearsed it her whole life. When his grandmother pulled her into an embrace, Ao melted into it with a tenderness that made the old woman cry harder. "You came home," his grandmother kept whispering. Ao answered every time, "I hope I deserve it." Watching them, Jisoo felt a knot in his chest loosen. This woman, this stranger, was healing fractures in his family just by standing there, and he'd almost run from her because she didn't fit a picture in his head. The thought made him sick. Later, when the crowd thinned and the alcohol softened everyone's edges, Minho reappeared with 2 glasses. He shoved one into Jisoo's hand. "You look less like a hostage," Minho observed. "I feel like one," Jisoo said, but the words lacked bite. Minho nodded toward Ao across the room. She was dancing with his grandmother, both of them laughing. "She's rewriting the room," he said. "You see that?" "I see it," Jisoo murmured. "So what are you going to do?" The question hung heavy. Jisoo watched Ao spin, her braid catching the light. She looked free in a way that mocked the vows still echoing in his ears. "I'm going to try," he said finally. "To what?" "To deserve her courage." Minho blinked. Then he grinned. "That's the first honest thing you've said all year." Jisoo drained his glass. The liquor burned clean. Across the dance floor, Ao caught his eye again. She tilted her head, questioning. He crossed the space before he could rethink it. "Dance with me," he said. Her eyebrows lifted. "Is that an order or a request?" "A plea." She laughed and took his hand. The music slowed. He pulled her close, tentative. Her palm settled against his shoulder. Heat seeped through the fabric. "You're shaking," she murmured. "So are you," he replied. "Good," she said. "I'd hate to be the only one terrified." They moved in small circles. The world narrowed to breath and heartbeat. He felt her ribs expand against his chest. Every inhale was a reminder. She was real. This was real. "I don't want you to leave," he said suddenly. Her steps faltered. "You don't know me." "I want to," he insisted. "I want time." Ao searched his face like she was reading a language she didn't trust yet. "Time is expensive," she said. "I don't have much." "For your father," he said quietly. She nodded. Then spend it here, he whispered, with me. Let this be more than a bridge. Her eyes shone. For a heartbeat he thought she'd pull away. Instead, she rested her forehead against his. If I stay, she breathed, you don't get to hate me later for it. I'll hate myself first, he said. That's tradition. She laughed, a wet, broken sound, and in that laugh, something fragile bloomed between them. Not love, not yet. Permission. Halfway through the song, she spoke again. My father thinks your family rescued me. They didn't, Jisoo said. I know, she whispered, but he needs the story. Promise me you won't tear it apart while he's alive. The request lodged in his throat. It meant carrying the lie longer. It meant protecting a narrative built on omission. I promise, he said anyway. Because her eyes were pleading, because her hands were warm, because for the first time in years, choosing someone else didn't feel like surrender. It felt like awakening. And somewhere deep inside, a voice he barely recognized whispered, this is how it starts. The hotel room they'd been gifted for the night overlooked the river, a sweep of glass and dark water and trembling reflections. When the door clicked shut behind them, the silence felt heavier than the ceremony had. No orchestra, no relatives, no applause to hide behind. Just breath. Ao slipped off her heels first. The sound they made hitting the floor was small, but final. She rolled her shoulders like she'd been carrying the entire day there and was only now allowed to set it down. I forgot how loud weddings are, she murmured. I forgot how loud my thoughts are, Jisoo replied. She glanced at him, a corner of her mouth lifting. That's unfortunate. You're stuck with them tonight. The word tonight hung between them, thick, loaded. He looked at the bed. Enormous, ceremonial. Then away. You can take it, he said quickly. I'll sleep on the couch. Ao laughed under her breath. Relax, I'm not afraid of a mattress. That's not what I meant. I know, she said gently. You're trying to be decent. It's sweet and unnecessary. She crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tracing the embroidered runner like she was grounding herself in texture. He stayed by the door, jacket still on, unsure where to put his body. We're married, she said quietly. The statement landed like a verdict. Paper married, he corrected, emotionally. We're roommates with paperwork. Roommates don't usually promise eternity in front of 100 witnesses. He swallowed. Do you regret it? Ao's hand stilled. For a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. When she looked up, her eyes were bright but steady. No, she said. I regret needing it, but I don't regret choosing you. The honesty cut clean. He crossed the room before he could second-guess the impulse and sat beside her, leaving a careful inch of space. Why me? He asked. Out of all the men your father could have arranged, why me? She exhaled slowly. Because your family didn't flinch when they saw me. I did, he whispered. Yes, she said. But you still walked. He stared at his hands. They were still trembling, though the day was over. That doesn't make me brave. It makes me obedient. It makes you present, she countered. Most men disappear when reality doesn't match their fantasy. You stayed long enough to be disappointed. That's rare. He barked a humorless laugh. You're grading me on a curve. I'm grading you on survival, she said softly. Mine and yours. The city lights flickered across her face. He noticed the faint smudge of mascara at the corner of her eye, the exhaustion etched into the line of her jaw. She looked like a soldier after a parade. Uniform perfect, spirit frayed. You can sleep, he said. I'll shower, give you quiet. She caught his wrist before he stood. Her touch was warm, anchoring. Stay, she whispered. Just for a minute. I don't want the day to end yet. If it ends, I have to think about tomorrow. He stayed. They sat shoulder to shoulder, listening to the river breathe. His pulse slowly matched the rhythm of it. For the first time since the doors opened, he felt something like calm. I used to think marriage would feel like a cage, he admitted. Tonight it feels like a cliff, like I stepped off and I'm still falling. Ao's head tilted until it rested lightly against his shoulder. The contact was tentative, a question. He didn't move. I've been falling my whole life, she murmured. I just learned how to land without breaking. He turned his head slightly. Her braids brushed his cheek. The intimacy of it made his chest ache. You don't have to land alone anymore, he said before he could stop himself. She went very still. He felt the shift in her breath. Careful, she whispered. That sounds like a promise. Maybe it is. Silence stretched. He could feel her thinking, weighing the words like glass in her hands. My father, she said at last, voice thin, told me love is a country. He said you spend your life trying to get citizenship somewhere. I never thought I'd qualify anywhere. Not fully Korean, not fully Nigerian, always visiting. He turned toward her. You're not visiting here. You don't know that yet. I know how my grandmother looks at you, he said. Like you stitched something back into her chest she thought was gone. That's not tourism. Ao laughed softly, but it cracked halfway through. If I let myself believe that, she said, I'll want to stay. Then stay, he whispered. She lifted her head and met his eyes. The vulnerability there was naked, terrifying. You don't understand, she said. If I stay and you change your mind later, I don't just lose a husband. I lose the first place that ever felt like home. The weight of that settled over him like a mantle. He felt suddenly enormous and fragile at the same time, capable of shelter or destruction with the same hands. I won't change my mind, he said. You can't promise that. I can promise to fight myself if I try, he replied. That's the best I have. Her gaze searched his face for cracks. He let her look, let her see the fear and the stubbornness braided together. Okay, she breathed. We fight then. They sealed it not with a kiss, not with ceremony, but with a shared exhale that trembled out of both of them at once, an agreement made of air and nerve. A vibration shattered the quiet. Ao's phone lit up on the bedside table. She frowned and reached for it. Hospital. Her face drained of color. He's not supposed to call this late, she whispered. She answered on the first ring. Appa? Jisoo couldn't hear the other side, but he watched the words hit her like blows. Her spine curled, her free hand clutched the blanket. I'm coming, she said. I'm coming right now. The phone slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a dull thud. What happened? Jisoo demanded. She looked at him, eyes wide and lost. They said his heart, it's failing. They don't think he'll make the night. The room lurched. Then we go, he said instantly, already reaching for his jacket again. We go now. She shook her head, tears spilling over. I can't go in this dress. Then change. I don't have anything else. He grabbed his suitcase and dumped it onto the bed, hands moving without thought. Take whatever fits, we'll buy the rest later. She stared at him like he'd just offered her oxygen. Then she moved. Fast, frantic. Shedding silk and gold for his oversized shirt and sweatpants. The transformation was brutal and intimate, bride to daughter in seconds. When they ran through the lobby, the receptionist gasped. Cameras flashed from a lingering guest. Jisoo didn't care. He held Ao's hand like a lifeline and pulled her into the night. The taxi ride was a blur of red lights and whispered prayers. Ao pressed her forehead to the window, lips moving soundlessly. Jisoo counted every breath she took, terrified of the one she might not. Halfway there, she grabbed his hand and squeezed hard. If he dies before I say goodbye, she choked, I will never forgive myself. He won't, Jisoo said fiercely. He's waiting for you. You don't know that. I know fathers, he said. They hold on out of spite. A broken laugh escaped her. She clung to his hand like it was the only solid thing left in the world. And in that taxi, racing toward a hospital that smelled like endings, Jisoo understood something with terrifying clarity. This marriage was no longer a bridge. It was a battlefield. And he had chosen his side. The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and overbrewed coffee, the scent of people bargaining with time. Ao ran ahead of him, barefoot in his sweatpants, braid unraveling down her back. Nurses turned at the sight of her. Brides stripped to grief. But no one stopped her. Desperation has a language every building understands. Room 417. She burst through the door. The man in the bed looked smaller than Jisoo expected. Tubes traced his body like fragile lines keeping him tethered. His chest rose in shallow mechanical rhythm. Ao staggered to the bedside. Appa, she breathed. His eyes fluttered open. For a moment they were unfocused, then they found her. Light sparked there. Weak, but undeniable. Ayo, he rasped. You came back married. Her knees buckled. She laughed and cried in the same breath. I told you I would. Jisoo stayed near the door, unsure if he belonged inside this circle of blood and memory, but the older man's gaze slid to him, sharp despite the morphine haze. You, he whispered. Jisoo stepped closer. Sir. You didn't run. The words struck like a verdict. Ayo's head snapped toward Jisoo, startled. I didn't, Jisoo said quietly. The man's lips trembled into a smile. Good. She needs a man who knows how to stay. Ayo pressed her forehead to the back of her father's hand. Don't talk like that. He ignored her. His eyes stayed on Jisoo. Come closer. Jisoo obeyed. The man's fingers twitched until Jisoo took them. The grip was shockingly strong. I gave them everything, the father murmured. Money, promises, pride. All of it so she wouldn't be alone when I'm gone. Jisoo's stomach tightened. Ayo froze. You told me, she began. I lied, her father whispered. I said they wanted you. Truth is, I begged them to take you. The room tilted. Ayo lifted her head slowly. Appa. I told them you were fragile, he continued, breath hitching. That without a husband, you'd drift. That you'd shame the family name I borrowed for you. I made you sound broken. The words shattered in the air. Jisoo felt Ayo's hand tighten on the rail until her knuckles went white. Why? She choked. Because I was afraid, he said. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. I thought if I didn't secure your future, the world would swallow you. I thought love could be negotiated. Ayo stumbled back like he'd struck her. The monitors beeped louder, frantic. You sold me, she whispered. I saved you, he insisted weakly. You sold me, she repeated louder. You told them I was a burden to make them pity me. Silence crashed over the room. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Jisoo felt something tear inside his chest. Every piece of this marriage, every vow, every smile, suddenly reframed. Not a bridge, not a choice. A purchase. He looked at Ayo. She looked like glass about to splinter. Her father's gaze slid back to Jisoo. You owe me, he rasped. I paid for her safety. You owe me loyalty. The words hit like acid. Ayo turned to Jisoo, eyes wild. Don't answer him, she begged. Don't you dare agree with him. Jisoo's mouth went dry. The old man's grip tightened, desperate. I bought her a future, he insisted. You stand there because of me. Jisoo pulled his hand free. You didn't buy her, he said quietly. You terrified her into thinking she needed selling. The father flinched like he'd been slapped. Ayo stared at Jisoo, shock and gratitude colliding in her face. You were supposed to protect me, she whispered to her father, not auction me. I protected the only way I knew, he said, voice crumbling. I'm a small man, Ayo. I only had small tools. Tears streamed down her face. She stepped forward again, rage and love wrestling in her chest. She took his hand anyway. I wanted your blessing, she said, not your bargain. The monitor screamed. Nurses flooded in, hands pushed them back, commands snapped through the air. Ayo clung to the doorframe as they worked over him, her body shaking so violently, Jisoo thought she might collapse. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. She didn't resist. She folded into him, sobbing into his sleeve. I didn't get to forgive him, she choked. He can still hear you, Jisoo whispered. She dragged in a breath and shouted through the chaos. I forgive you. Do you hear me? I forgive you. The line on the monitor went flat. The sound carved the room in two. A nurse gently guided them out. The door closed on the stillness. Ayo slid down the wall until she hit the floor. Her grief poured out of her in raw animal sounds. Jisoo knelt and held her while she shattered. Halfway through the storm, she lifted her head and grabbed his collar. Did you know? She demanded. He recoiled. Know what? That he paid them to take me. That your family agreed because they pitied me. No, he swore. I didn't. But you suspected, she pressed. You felt something was wrong. I thought it was tradition, he said helplessly. I thought we were both trapped by culture, not this. She searched his face like a judge looking for guilt. He didn't look away. Finally, her grip loosened. She sagged against him again. I married you because I thought you were my choice, she whispered. If this was just another transaction, I don't know who I am inside it. You're the woman who walked down that aisle anyway, he said fiercely. No contract forced your feet. That was you. She closed her eyes. Then why do I feel owned? He had no answer. The corridor hummed with life continuing. Somewhere a baby cried. Somewhere a man laughed too loudly. The world didn't pause for private devastation. Ao's voice came small against his chest. If I leave now, everyone will say I proved him right. If you stay, Jisoo said slowly, they'll say he saved you. She laughed bitterly. There's no version where I win. He tilted her chin up. Her eyes were swollen, furious. Then don't play their version, he said. We write ours. She stared at him, searching. You'd stand against your family for me? I already did, he said quietly. I just didn't know the battlefield yet. Her breath hitched. In the middle of the sterile hallway, with death still echoing behind them, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was a collision. Grief slamming into need, fear crashing into relief. His hands came up instinctively, holding her like she might dissolve. When they broke apart, both of them were shaking. Ao pressed her forehead to his. If you betray me, she whispered, I won't survive it. The honesty in her voice was terrifying. He swallowed. Then I guess I don't get to betray you. She let out a broken breath that almost sounded like a laugh. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers, fluorescent lights, and the aftershock of a father's last mistake, they chose each other again. Not because it was clean, not because it was safe, but because walking away now would mean admitting love was nothing but a contract. And neither of them could live inside that lie anymore. If this story is tearing something open in you, stay with Afro Korean Stories TV. Subscribe, comment, share your heart in the thread, because these moments don't belong to fiction alone. They belong to anyone who's ever loved across a fault line. Ao squeezed his hand. Take me home, she whispered. And for the first time, Jisoo knew she meant with him. Not to a building, not to a family name. To a place they hadn't built yet, but were about to fight for. They signed the hospital papers with hands that didn't feel like their own. Ao wrote her name slowly, like each letter was a goodbye she hadn't practiced enough. When the nurse offered condolences, Ao nodded with a politeness so precise it hurt to watch. Grief had already started hardening into something sharper. Outside, dawn was leaking into the sky. The city looked scrubbed clean, indifferent to what it had taken. Jisoo expected Ao to collapse again once the doors shut behind them. She didn't. She stood perfectly still on the sidewalk, eyes fixed on nothing. He's really gone, she said. The way she said it, calm, factual, terrified him more than the screaming had. Yes, he answered gently. A long silence. Okay, she whispered, then we move. He blinked. Move? I don't get to fall apart, she said. He spent his last breath making sure I wouldn't be alone. If I crumble now, he dies believing he failed. You don't owe him performance, Jisoo said. I owe myself survival, she corrected. She turned and started walking. No destination, just forward. He followed because there was nothing else to do. They walked until the city woke up around them. Shop shutters rolling open, buses coughing to life. Ao finally stopped in front of a convenience store. She stared at her reflection in the glass, his clothes hanging off her, makeup smeared, eyes hollow. I look like a thief, she murmured. You look like someone who outlived the night, he said. She laughed once. It scraped. Inside, she bought hair ties and a cheap toothbrush. The cashier congratulated them on the wedding after noticing the bouquet ribbon still tied around Ao's wrist. Ao smiled and thanked her. The normalcy of it was brutal. Back on the street, Ao tied her hair up with mechanical precision. We have to tell your family, she said. Jisoo's stomach dropped. Today? They'll hear anyway, she replied. Better it comes from us than gossip. He pictured his mother's face, the careful politeness, the calculations behind her eyes. Ao saw the fear flicker across him. Are you ashamed of me now? She asked quietly. No, he said instantly. I'm ashamed of them. Then let's go, she said. The drive to his parents' house felt longer than the wedding aisle. Every red light was a reprieve he didn't want to end. Ao sat rigid beside him, hands folded in her lap like she was holding herself together by the wrists. When they pulled up, his mother was already outside. She must have been watching the street. Her expression shifted the moment she saw Ao's face. "What happened?" she demanded. Ao stepped forward before Jisoo could speak. "My father died," she said simply. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. For a second, the performance dropped. Real grief, or something close to it, flashed through her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Ao bowed slightly. "Thank you." They moved inside. The house smelled like incense and breakfast, ordinary life colliding with fresh death. Jisoo felt dizzy. His father emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands. The moment he understood, his posture changed. He bowed deeply to Ao. "You have our condolences," he said. Ao returned the bow. Perfect. Controlled. Then she straightened and spoke the words that detonated the room. "He paid you to take me." Silence swallowed everything. Jisoo's mother's face went white. His father froze mid-breath. Ao didn't blink. "He told me before he died. I want to hear your version." His father recovered first. "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "Then tell me what it was like," she replied. His mother's voice trembled. "He offered a donation to support the wedding." "He called it a purchase," Ao said. "That's not fair," his mother snapped. "We didn't sell our son." Ao's eyes flashed. "Then why didn't you refuse?" The question hung sharp and undeniable. Jisoo stepped forward. "Answer her." His father's jaw tightened. "Because," he said slowly, "we believed we were helping a dying man secure peace." "You believed you were helping yourselves," Jisoo shot back. "You took his money because it made this easier to justify." His mother rounded on him. "We did this for you." "You did this for your reputation," he said. "Don't dress it up as love." Ao watched them like someone observing a storm she'd already survived. When she spoke again, her voice was eerily calm. "I'm not here to accuse you," she said. "I'm here to release you." They stared at her. "My father is dead," she continued. "The contract he imagined died with him. If you want this marriage to end, say it now. I will walk away. No scandal, no blame. I will carry the shame myself." Jisoo's heart slammed against his ribs. "Ayo." She held up a hand. "Let them choose." His mother's eyes darted between them. Fear, pride, calculation, the familiar dance. Finally, his father spoke. "You are our daughter," he said. "Money or no money, that does not change." Ao searched his face. "Say it without looking at him," she said quietly. He turned fully to her. His voice steadied. "You are our daughter." Something in Ao's shoulders loosened, not forgiveness, not trust, but a small easing. His mother stepped forward hesitantly. "Stay," she whispered. "Please." The word please cost her. Jisoo saw it. Ao nodded once. "Then we stay," she said. "But understand this. I am not charity. I am not debt. I am not gratitude wrapped in silk. If I remain in this house, it is because I choose to, every day." His father bowed. Understood. The tension didn't disappear. It shifted. From transaction to negotiation, from ownership to fragile alliance. Jisoo exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Halfway through the silence, Ao reached for his hand. He laced his fingers through hers instinctively. The contact grounded him. She looked at his parents. "We will mourn," she said, "and then we will live. If you can't accept both, tell me now." His mother's eyes filled. "We will learn," she whispered. It wasn't a promise, but it was the first honest thing she'd offered. And honesty, Jisoo realized, was a beginning. If you're still here, still breathing with them, stay with Afro Korean Stories TV. Subscribe, like, share your voice below. These stories live because you carry them forward. Ao squeezed his hand once, hard. Later, when they were finally alone in his childhood room, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the walls covered in trophies and framed diplomas. "You were raised to win," she murmured. "I was raised to look like I did," he corrected. She looked at him. "Today you didn't look like anything. You just were." He sat beside her. That's new. Keep doing it, she said, even when it costs you. It already has, he replied. She leaned into him slowly, exhaustion overtaking adrenaline. He wrapped an arm around her and felt her weight settle. Real, trusting. My father was wrong about many things, she whispered, but he was right about one. What's that? Love is a country, she said, and I think I just crossed a border. Jisoo rested his cheek against her hair. Outside, the house murmured with the sounds of a family adjusting to a new reality. Inside, in the quiet space between grief and mourning, he felt it too. They weren't purchased. They weren't rescued. They were building citizenship in a place neither of them had ever been allowed to claim. And for the first time since the wedding doors opened, the future didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a fight worth staying for. The funeral folded the week into a single, endless day. Ao stood at the front of the chapel, in white instead of black, honoring the promise she'd whispered over her father's still hand. I will not let grief dress me in darkness. The fabric glowed against her skin. People stared, some disapproving, some awed. She didn't look at any of them. Jisoo stayed half a step behind her, close enough to catch her if she tipped forward. He felt every tremor that ran through her spine. Grief had changed shape. It wasn't a storm anymore. It was pressure. Deep, tectonic, threatening to split the ground. When it was her turn to speak, the room inhaled. Ao stepped to the microphone. Her hands didn't shake. That frightened him more than tears would have. My father, she began, voice steady, was a man who believed love could be engineered. He thought if he built enough walls around me, nothing could hurt me. A ripple moved through the crowd. He was wrong, she continued. Love is not a fortress, it's a risk. And he took that risk badly, messily, sometimes selfishly. But he took it because he was afraid of leaving me alone in a world that never decided what to call me. Her eyes lifted. They found Jisoo. I am not alone, she said. The words landed like a declaration, not comfort, but claim. And that, she finished softly, is the one thing he did right. He fought for my future, even when he misunderstood what I needed. I forgive him, and I will live loudly enough that his fear never wins. Silence followed, then applause. Hesitant at first and then swelling, not for performance, for courage. Jisoo felt his throat close. He'd never seen grief turned into something so sharp and bright. She wasn't surviving anymore. She was rewriting the narrative in real time. After the service, relatives pressed in. Some embraced her. Some whispered judgments thinly disguised as condolences. Ao accepted all of it with the same calm, but he felt her fingers tightening in his sleeve, a silent Morse code. Stay. He stayed. Outside, rain began without warning. The crowd scattered under umbrellas. Ao didn't move. She stepped into the downpour and lifted her face to it. Water slicked her hair to her skull, erased the careful lines of the day. He hated rain, she murmured. Jisoo joined her, suit soaking instantly. Why? He said it blurred the world. He likes sharp edges. She laughed softly. I think I like blur. It makes room. She turned to him, rain running down her cheeks indistinguishable from tears. Marry me, she said. He blinked. We are married. No, she said fiercely. That was paperwork. That was fear. I'm asking now, with nothing to buy and nothing to prove, just me. His heart slammed against his ribs. The street noise faded. The rain became a curtain isolating them from everything else. You're asking me, he whispered, on the day you buried your father. I'm asking you because I buried the version of myself that thought I needed permission to want you, she said. I want you, not as shelter, not as survival, as choice. The vulnerability in her voice tore him open. Yes, he said, breathless. 1,000 times yes. She laughed, a sound so alive it hurt. She pulled him into a kiss that tasted like rain and salt and beginning. For a moment the world made sense in the simplest way. Two people choosing. A camera shutter clicked. They broke apart. Across the street, a reporter lowered her lens, eyes bright with hunger. Jisoo's stomach dropped. By evening, the headline was everywhere. Billion-won bride, widow's daughter marries into wealth after secret payment. The article laid it out in brutal detail. The money, the arrangement, the whispers of pity dressed as charity. Ao read it on her phone in his childhood room, the glow bleaching her face. "They turned my father into a villain," she whispered. "They turned us into a transaction," Jisoo said. Her jaw clenched. "Your family leaked it." He didn't want to believe it, but the precision of the numbers, the private conversations quoted almost word for word. It was impossible to deny. Footsteps thundered down the hall. His mother burst in, eyes wild. "We didn't," she started. "Don't lie," Ao said quietly. His mother faltered. The silence confessed everything. "It was supposed to protect you," she said desperately. "If the story came out later, it would look worse. We controlled the narrative." "You sold me again," Ao whispered. Jisoo stepped between them. "Get out," he said. His mother recoiled. "This is my house." "And she is my wife," he replied. "Get out." The word wife cracked like thunder. His mother stared at him like she'd never seen him before. "You're choosing her over your blood," she said. "I'm choosing truth over fear," he answered. She left without another word. The door slammed. Ao sank onto the bed, phone slipping from her fingers. The article kept refreshing, comments multiplying. Strangers dissecting her life like entertainment. "I can't outrun this," she whispered. "Everywhere I go, I'll be the girl who was bought." Jisoo knelt in front of her. "Then we don't outrun it," he said. "We walk straight through it." "How?" "By owning the story," he said. "By telling it ourselves." Her eyes lifted slowly. "You'd stand in front of that fire with me?" "I already am," he said. The next morning they called a press conference. The room buzzed with anticipation. Cameras aimed like weapons. Ao stood at the podium in a simple black dress. Jisoo stood beside her, fingers brushing hers. She leaned into the microphone. "My father paid for my wedding," she said. No hesitation, no spin. Not because I was broken, because he was afraid. He loved badly, but he loved, and I will not let the world reduce him to a villain for trying to protect me. The room stilled. "I married this man," she continued, gripping Jisoo's hand, "because I chose him, not for money, not for rescue. Because he stayed when leaving would have been easier. If you need a scandal, find one somewhere else. My life is not your currency." A reporter shouted, "Are you saying the marriage is real?" Ao smiled, fierce and bright. "Watch us," she said. The conference exploded into noise, but the narrative had shifted, not erased, transformed. Weeks later, the headlines faded, the comments slowed, the world moved on, hungry for a new spectacle. But the consequence remained. Jisoo's parents cut financial ties, no inheritance, no safety net. They left the house with 2 suitcases and a future that looked terrifyingly blank. Standing on the sidewalk with Ao beside him, he felt the weight of it settle, and the strange lightness underneath. "I thought losing everything would hurt more," he admitted. Ao laced her fingers through his. "You didn't lose everything," she said. "You traded it." "For what?" She smiled softly. "For citizenship." He laughed. The word echoed back to that first night, to the bridge, to the battlefield. They weren't sheltered. They weren't purchased. They were exposed and awake and choosing each other without contract. If you've walked this far with them, stay with Afro Korean Stories TV. Subscribe, share, and keep crossing borders with us. These stories don't end. They echo. Ao rested her head on his shoulder. The city stretched ahead, uncertain and wide. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "But I'm not alone." He kissed her hair. "Neither am I." And in the space where fear used to live, something stronger took root. Not certainty, not safety. Belonging. They stepped forward together, not into a perfect future, not into a promised land, but into a country they were building with every risk, every confession, every stubborn act of love. And this time, no one owned the map.